Welcome to Season 6, Episode 4. We've got Creative Beta Design and the Attribution SDK. So let's jump into it. When it comes to credit, we've got about $1,000 of outstanding loans for the alpha. Another 73 cents was repaid, and there's $3.23 being owed in outstanding interest. And we've currently got about 14 addresses, 12 which are actually borrowing in. Looks like one or two maybe got liquidated, but not sure. On credit. So we've got a new credit score design in terms of how the conceptual model of your credit score is calculated. So that's shipped, but now we need to build out wireframes and user interfaces that make it easy to understand how that new kind of game works, and also just like improving the simplicity and ease of use of how to actually use the borrow product. So that's kind of like the next thing in the roadmap. We're thinking a bit more about how we can repackage some of the risk, the work we've done around risk to sell to other protocols. And in terms of the credit score design, we've got this new V2 design, but for V3, we're thinking of like how can you create a market-driven credit score where it's like we're not even setting the parameters, but it's really just like adapting based on the conditions in the market. And then finally, it's just writing a lot more documentation of how the credit score works. It's something new that's never been done in DeFi. There's a lot of details that we've kind of thought over, and like communicating those details can help instill confidence as to why people should use the system and actually trust it fundamentally. So that's kind of coming up next. In terms of later, we've decided to push back the audit. This is mainly because we want to ensure we have product market fit and we have borrowers that want to borrow with size before kind of spending that money. So that's where we're at on credit. In terms of platform, we're waiting on decision, like an approval from a protocol we're working with, and then we're going to be presenting to another customer around the Attribution SDK. And this SDK is basically a way to unify all of the users' actions on-chain and off-chain so that they can better understand their customers. So that's kind of like starting to get in motion. We're in the trenches with Juicebox to get the next kind of piece of work we're planning to do with them. The vibe check failed, but we're going to be resubmitting that. We've got another very exciting conversation with another protocol this week, and we have another protocol that might want to purchase some of our risk capabilities. So that's kind of where we're at with platform, and essentially it's creating content that establishes us as market leaders when it comes to like data and analytics, so that we can gain more credibility in all facets of what we're doing. And in terms of later, it's just like improving our infrastructure so that we can do more at scale and start to do even cooler things. So that's it on platform. In terms of overview, shout outs to Liam for articulating the insights from customers in a way that's easy to understand and understand why we're building the solution we're building. And then a lot of the challenges mainly just come down to like execution. The path ahead is becoming really clear, and we've eliminated a lot of guesswork. We did a clear direction for how we want to iterate with credit. We have a clear direction on how we want to progress the platform. And we're getting higher conviction in what we want to build as the weeks and months go by. So it's exciting because execution and building are things that we're definitely good at here at ARCx. So over to the next slides. This is in response to Wu wanting to see some of the behind the scenes work of the alpha and the credit score. So this is the current credit score breakdown page that we have right now. It shows you how you earn points, and it shows you a graph of how your credit score changes. So my credit score changed drastically with the new credit score design, but I'm still not at 999. So my life's mission is to be the best borrower, and I'm going to get that 999. But fundamentally, this interface like isn't as great as it could be. So what we're iterating towards next is kind of a more simpler design, focused around like your position health holistically, and then the different vault. So these are still wireframes that we're fleshing out, but can you just give you guys a sneak peek of some of the really neat work happening behind the scenes? So that's it on my end. I'll pass it over to Kyle on engineering.
Awesome, thanks, Kerman. So yeah, so last week was a busy week in terms of discussions and discussions in Notion, discussions in Discord, everywhere else. So lots of things changed. As you guys saw in Kerman's little sneak peek, his credit score changed a lot. So there's a lot of things going along with that. We made some pretty good progress on moving our Merkle trees into Titan, which is really cool. We're already seeing some really big improvements in terms of performance. We also had some UX tweaks that we needed to do, and we have even more coming with the new wireframes that are being made. Also, Kerman teased those. And we also added some more stability on the root publishing with all the chaos that was happening last week. We had, Polygon and Mumbai go through a little bit of rough patches, and so we noticed we had a little bit of a crack sometimes. So we were able to patch those up and make sure that didn't happen again. So yeah, this week, we're going to keep specking out all the changes for credit. We're going to have discussions around an attribution SDK. We want to try to finish up the Merkle trees in Titan this week, hopefully. Finish some supply pool stuff and catch up on some tech debt. So shout outs, welcome back to G2Pak. Glad to have you back. And also shout out to Diego for his, he did a really cool write-up on the dynamic credit limits. So that was a very interesting read, and it kicked off a lot of cool conversations. Challenges. So for us to define what done looks like, it's, the last 5% takes 80% of the effort. So we're trying to figure out, where that trade-off goes. And also identifying the most important tasks when we have so many things going on at the same time. Yeah, that's it for me. Passing it over to Titans.
GM. All right, what's going on in our world? So Cassio's things I've been talking about for the last few weeks, and it's basically done. So that got a release. It was in hypercare last week. Very happy. Everything is good. We've deprecated our old engine. So that's very cool news. Other things that really happened in our world is, as Kerman kind of alluded to, we had a new release of the credit score, a new version of that that's a little bit easier to understand, a little bit more useful. So that will be released a part of our beta borrow product. We're doing these credit limits discussions. So how do we actually, what limit do we release into the market when we go live with it all? And how do we kind of structure the product in such a way that we can iterate from there? And other things we're doing is this revenue attribution framework with Liam. So that's to support a customer conversation. So that was one other big thing worked on. So basically the split between the team at the moment is there's a big chunk of us focusing on risk and a big chunk of us focusing on this like platform piece. For this week, what's happening from the risk perspective is they're doing a bunch of analyses on Polygon around the liquidators and around the borrower behaviors. So it's just really supporting the beta borrow and making sure that we have everything together to set our parameters for that release. And what will be happening on the platform side is that we want to do a dry run of this revenue attribution. So we're going to simulate some data coming out of one of these redacted kind of customers and just check that everything looks good and it's good to productize that for them. And the other thing is some post-Cassio optimization. So now that's been released, we have basically, the way I frame it is that we had this cap of how good our solution could get with our old engine. And with Cassio, we've just basically quadrupled tenfold that cap. So now we can start adding some optimizations in and iterations from there. So we're doing little bits and pieces of that. From a shout-outs perspective, so Diego, I'll shout out, he's worked very hard on that project. It's closed. He's moved over into risk for the moment. So very cool. And congratulations to him for all that hard work there. I'm going to shout out Stuart and Hugh. Those two have been working so well and so hard around the beta borrow product, and it's looking really cool, and it's getting really crystal clear to the point where I feel really confident about it, and it's not so chaotic, which is very exciting. And then yes, Gabe, welcome back to all the chaos here. It's very funny. We made the joke this morning that Gabe leaves for 2 weeks, and a whole bunch of new things change. It's just the everlasting thing at ARCx is that every 2 weeks it's always something new and exciting. And then from a challenges perspective, in a kind of counter normal perspective, I actually don't really have any. A lot of things are being solved. I feel really good. They didn't really have anything to raise. I've been picking an artificial problem. I feel really good this week. So no challenges from the Titans. That's it. So over to Liam with the Spartans.
GM. So yeah, last week was just sending out like proposals and statements of work, and we've sort of got some preliminary validation on some new builds that have been mentioned already, and there was a few specs that got put through, just pending the approval of one of the customers. And then I started to do some more public objection handling with a project that is developing sort of like a... we were trying to put something through Snapshot, and the community just needed more information on some things. And we also had some new inbounds come through, so I was just sitting with meetings with them. This week, I am sending off more statements of work. I'm finalizing another 2 specs, just so we can have them ready for if the customer moves forward. And then we're also exploring a new commercial avenue with a partner around risk. We are drafting some preliminary thoughts around like a Sybil resistant solution, and probably most sort of like from a management side, looking at how we start to forecast revenue and communicate that and share that with people. So I wanted to shout out Kale, so for his teaching and collaboration and community building across the teams, and just networking generally, and sort of stitching everything together. So it's really great to see, and Kale's definitely a sort of a role model of what good collaboration looks like. I also wanted to shout out Kerman. It was I think for a lot of people last week was a very rough week, and I think it's certainly there were a number of things I got stuck on, just given the market volatility, deals sort of looking like they were, and Kerman helped sort of turn a lot of it around. So thank you for the encouragement, and the consult on blockers. So I really appreciate it. And then challenges is just just the first dollar in revenue and articulating that really clearly. So that's everything from me, and I will pass it over to Hugh for product and growth.
Thanks, Liam. So last week was a continuation of user interviews and understanding different pain points and needs with respect to borrowing. Also, like a large chunk was on collaborating on the vault design and the credit limit design for borrow as well. So a few changes that were mentioned by Kerman, that was like a direct result of the conversations last week. And also spent quite a lot of time pulling together a lot of those insights and then packaging it up in updated wireframes. These are going to go to our designer eventually, and will form the basis of how we progress the front end of the app in the next few weeks. Looking ahead to this week, we've got a few of these cool user testing again, but more with respect to the wireframe. So actually looking at those designs and seeing do they solve the problem? Do they make sense? And sort of understanding that from the customer. Also got to write some detailed spec for that. This is important not only just so that we can ensure we're the desired functionality that we're building is well documented and we really understand what the app will look and feel like, but also it's important for if we get a designer to come in, that will be important for them to understand exactly what we want to happen and design for that. Also, we have 2 conversations, one today and one still being scheduled for catching up with designers. So that's kind of in progress. And as mentioned, a lot of the one of the big insights that we had from last week was that having trust in the system is incredibly important, particularly when you are thinking about even experimenting with a new application in DeFi. And one of the main ways of building trust is through having extremely thorough and well-written documentation for the users. So we want to get ahead of that before we release to the public, and make sure that that's looking top-notch. So to progress that, I'm going to spend a bit of time actually writing up user documentation. There's a heap of great work that's been done from the risk team in this area, and so a lot of it will be repackaging that work. But so it's really exciting to be able to share that out. Also, just getting into more of a regular working cadence with the credit team. That's something that will be really awesome now that Gabe's back. So you can get a nice little crew going on a regular. And additional user research. I think one of the last outstanding questions that we have is around price sensitivity. So when you're initiating a transaction, there's often three things that you're looking at, like the liquidation penalty, the interest rate, and the loan instantiation fees. So those three things, keen to understand a bit more about how that ranks in the different set of priorities that people have when they're making a decision to borrow. So that's a continued piece of work, and it'll inform where we price the product at, and also the mechanism for how we charge users. So that's really it. Shout outs Stuart and Diego. So clearly these guys, I don't know how we managed to steal these people from the university system, but I'm really glad that we have them. The quality of the analysis coming out of that team is phenomenal. So yeah, massive shout out there. And challenges is really just I think I mentioned this last week, but it's bridging that gap, or bridging the risk user experience competing priorities, which in this business seem to be a trade-off. But really, really good work from last week, I think, has put us in a position where we're actually really close to doing that. And now it's more about executing on it. So that's really it for me. And I'll hand it over to Kerman for a Q&A.
Cool. Joel, what are the questions this week, my friend? Sweet, yeah. All right. It's I think Wu had the thing around the sneak peek, so glad we could showcase that to him. I'm also really amazed the fact that on the GM leaderboard, he's just smashing it. So quick shout out to Wu for the 53-day GM streak, Classicus trailing at 51, and Joel slipping a bit at 34. So let's see how the game progresses from here. Maybe we should add a section, actually something like GM leaderboard review. We can add that as a little bit to the thing, and for next time, I probably want to create a community member shout out. So I'd love to shout out Wu for the engagement on the community channel. He's just asking some really nice questions and trying to really take a deeper understanding to what we're trying to do. So keep it up, and catch you all next week. Goodbye.